I'm Mark Ganter of Little Water Distillery, and you are watching South Jersey Business with Joe Molyneux.
Welcome to South Jersey Business with Joe Molyneux. Thank you for joining us as we share information, tips, and techniques that can help make our business community and your business more successful. Thank you to Stockton University for the opportunity to produce this show focusing on business in South Jersey. On today's program, we will talk with Mark Ganter, who along with his brother Eric Ganter own and operate Little Water Distillery in Atlantic City, New Jersey. Mark will share portions of the brothers Ganter entrepreneurial story as well as his experience with starting and growing a distillery business in our region. A few short years ago, I had the privilege to be privy to the concept and plan for the distillery when it was just a droplet of an idea. Through persistence, hard work, and dedication to their craft, Mark and Eric have built a solid business based on principles Mark Ganter will share with us today, right here on South Jersey Business. Stay tuned for our conversation with Mark Ganter of Little Water Distillery in Atlantic City and more on South Jersey Business with Joe Molyneux. Welcome back to business. Thanks for joining South Jersey Business with me, Joe Molyneux. Please welcome our guest, co-owner and operator of Little Water Distillery in Atlantic City, Mark Ganter. Mark, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Joe.
So take us back to the beginning. How did you and your brother Eric start your entrepreneurial journey?
The short story is we bought my father a still for his 70th birthday. And that was in 2013, January. And I was living in D.C., he was in Ventnor. And we were both kind of traveling up on a regular basis to spend time with my father and kind of kick the tires in this little, piece of equipment we bought him. And just fell in love with it and fell in love with kind of the connection back to my father and just having a good time as, siblings. And they coincidentally passed the craft distillation laws in New Jersey in the same month. And that really kind of kicked off the notion for us. And we gave ourselves 6 months to come up with a couple of recipes, see if we even knew what we were doing. And by the time the 6 months rolled around, we had our business plan written. We were out to banks, and we were meeting guys like Joe Molyneux.
It's really great because your background, you've worked in the beer, wine, and spirits industry for so long. How are those experiences helping you be more successful today?
You're the one that says successful. Hopefully we are at some point going to achieve that title, but it really gave me a sense of what the industry did, how it worked, kind of the uniqueness of New Jersey as a retail market. But the company I worked for had a really, really interesting model, and it distinguished itself from all the other retailers in the beer, wine, and spirits industry in that they really focused on developing the salespeople in the retail outlets, in understanding the value of their private label program, because that's where they made all their money, and really kind of teaching them to understand, love, and kind of feel some kinship with the product. And that was always a really important lesson for me in kind of taking this business forward. And it's something I didn't see happening a lot in the industry as a whole.
Why the name? How'd you land on Little Water Distillery?
Because we kicked around about 30 names to everyone we'd ever met at that point. And I think Eric was surfing around on the city website and kind of read a history of Atlantic City and where the name Absecon Island came from. And Absecon is the Lenape word for low water. Before being populated, Atlantic City was primarily swampland that led to the ocean. And when the Lenape would travel to the ocean, they'd have to cross this very low water or shallow water area, and hence the name Absecon, and we appropriated that for ourselves.
Can you briefly talk about the three products that you currently have there at Little Water?
Yeah. So the first product we released back in December of 2016 was Whitecap Whiskey. That's a collaboration project with friends and partners of ours in Rural Retreat, Virginia. And that's a 60% corn, 20 wheat, 20 rye whiskey. It's aged partially in once-used bourbon barrels, so it's not a bourbon, it's an American-style whiskey. The next product we rolled out was our rum, and that was really the only reason we went into business in the first place. Rum was always kind of near and dear to us. We were always piqued by the story of colonial-style rums and what rum was to America before the Revolution, and how whiskey supplanted it very, very quickly thereafter. And from that point forward was, the American spirit, but in reality it was always rum, or it was initially rum. And last but not least is our 48 Blocks vodka, which is a real kind of unique play for us, and it's something we only distribute inside Atlantic City.
There's a lot of science that goes into the distilling business. Who wears the lab coat?
Not me. My brother Eric wears the lab coat. He's in charge of distilling. We kind of share the R&D hats a little bit, even though neither of us probably should. But he's fully responsible for product development and delivery.
Well, thanks for sharing a portion of your entrepreneurial story. We'll be right back with more South Jersey Business Talk with Mark Ganner of Little Water Distillery in Atlantic City. We are back with co-owner and operator of Little Water Distillery in Atlantic City, Mark Ganter. Mark,
Yes.
how do you define success?
The short answer is I'll tell you if we ever achieve it. But I think at this point, just kind of taking the opportunity to look back and just see what we've accomplished, and it was really what we set out to do. And I look at our bottle of Liberty rum, and it's the first thing we really kind of set out to accomplish. The first thing we kind of put our heads into. The first thing we really agreed on from a design standpoint, a product standpoint, everything from the packaging, the what's inside the bottle, and how we were taking it to market, and the kind of the vision for it. And we've delivered on that, and that to me is a very, very satisfying feeling, and I think that for me is success at this point.
It's a great definition. You have created a pretty strong community support of your organization, your business from the get-go, but then in turn you've also been very supportive of the community. Can you talk about what came first and actually the importance of both?
I think they're both a little bit serendipitous. I don't think we set out to really kind of build the following like I think we have right now. A lot of it happened as a result of us, I think, just taking the leap in Atlantic City and really, kind of going at something that, for Eric and I, was simply what we had planned to do all along. I think on the outside, it looked like we were doing something, courageous in a part of the town that wasn't, traditionally like sought after for development. It's one of the benefits of not really being from the area. We never considered that this was the right or wrong place. We just knew it was a place we were going to do it, and we moved forward. And unbeknownst to us, I think that really kind of garnered a lot of respect for what we were doing, and that showed itself in a launch of our first product. We went to market without a second of advertising or marketing and a penny behind it, and we sold, I think, 1,500 bottles in the first 4 weeks, which kept us on the map.
Speaking of being put on the map, you and your brother found yourself as a catalyst and someone that was on the cutting edge of the distillery business, one of the first in the region and one of the premier in the state at this point, getting started in South Jersey. Do you find yourself, being sought out as a resource for people that want to follow in your footsteps?
We've definitely gotten some inquiries. I mean, it's a growing industry, and it's a very small industry, but there are a lot of people that I think have had an inkling to do it, and when they see someone else do it, they find out it's the right time for them too. So we have kind of fielded a lot of questions, a lot of inquiries. Fortunately, everyone kind of recognizes how busy we are, so we don't we give adequate bandwidth, but we can't give much more than that right now.
It's a little like asking who your favorite child is, but of the rum, whiskey, or vodka, which is your favorite? The rum. All right.
That's my favorite child.
That's
the other two can go pound sand. Yeah, no, look, we're behind all the products for different reasons. But as I said earlier, when I defined success, I mean, the rum is something that we really, we didn't waver one iota. It's exactly how we intended it to be. It's not our biggest seller.
I do have one last question.
Please.
What's the future of Little Waters? What's next?
Well, global dominance, obviously. Why else would we got in business? But we want to continue to grow brands. We want to develop the ones we have, and we want to innovate. We want to get a few kind of workhorses out there, and then give ourselves the room to innovate on some really interesting products that aren't as common in the market.
You have a great entrepreneurial story. Thank you for sharing a portion of it with us today here on South Jersey Business. That was Mark Ganner of Little Water Distillery in Atlantic City, New Jersey. We'll be right back with more South Jersey Business. As you are aware, management, marketing, money, and media are the essential parts of any business, and the business of distilling whiskey, rum, and vodka and offering those products to the public is no different. So it's time for the M4 Big Money Question. So Mark, if you could break down the M4 Big Money Question for me, let's take them one at a time. Talk to me about your management style.
You know, my management style is evolving, and it's probably born out of a disgust for previous managers. But yeah, I think first and foremost, and what I've learned since taking this leap is that you have to have the confidence to own your vision every day. And it sounds very cliche, and it would have sounded cliche to me 2 years ago, but I get it, and I get it every day. And I think equally important is you have to have the courage to share that with your staff and anyone that'll listen. Otherwise, it's too easy to lose sight of. And you know, in my mind, I think right now that would be a killer for us.
I like it. It's like guiding principles in your management style.
Yeah, but it's real. It's authentic. I mean, it's truly what it's how I feel about how we approach things.
That's a key word, and I think that might be part of the next answer. But when you talk about marketing, that's the second M that we're going to talk about. Talk to me about your marketing. I mean, I see it out there. I know you're doing it, but talk to me about your marketing style.
You know, this also takes me back to kind of that experience with the company I worked for prior to this. You know, we operate in a smoke and mirrors industry. Spirits marketing is very much perception marketing, and you know, we live and die by our authenticity. Otherwise, we have no means of competing with larger national brands and big marketing machines that we frankly have no intention of or desire to compete with. You know, I think what's worked really well for us is to kind of identify our fans, and celebrate them, kind of bring them into our vision and create mavens that can kind of deliver that authenticity message. It's so much easier to have people deliver your brand for you and market for you based on their own experiences than it is to go out and try and win someone over that's kind of stuck in that smoke and mirrors world, or that's been subject to brand recognition that we don't intend to compete with.
Well, let's talk about something that we don't always talk about, money. And it's a necessary evil, but let's talk about it real quickly.
It definitely is, and I think for us, it's critical to keep in focus. And this is going to sound cliche again, but it's as true as the day is long. It's always got to be right behind your passion and your vision. Money alone will not keep you in the building 20 hours a day if it has to.
That's right. That's a great answer. Finally, I've been following, as thousands of people are, also your social media. So let's talk about media. I know it's an extension of marketing, but it deserves its own category because it's so important today. Talk to me about how you've embraced the social media platform. By
hiring someone who's really good at it, because I enjoy it, but it also, it digs a little too deep into my sense of humor and personality, and that's not always great for the business. So, we found someone who's, frankly, from the industry, but really understands how to kind of, harness the power of social media and kind of deliver our message and deliver our brand without being overbearing. And I think that's absolutely critical for keeping people interested and not keeping people alienated.
Well, you're definitely doing that, and I want to thank you for hitting a home run and knocking the ball out of the park on your M4 Big Money Question, Mark. Thank you. All right, there you have it. Mark Ganter of Little Water Distillery's non-distilled M4 mix of management, marketing, money, and media. Welcome back. On today's 3-minute drill, we will stick with today's theme and continue our 3-minute drilling as we examine lessons learned from the business of distilling. There are some key ingredients in starting and growing a successful distillery. There are also keys to being a successful business, whatever type of business you choose to operate. We may find ourselves with a tasty small batch of business basics. First off, the plan. As with any entity, you need a plan, but not just any plan. You need a plan that takes into account a process that takes time to mature and age. Think about what needs to happen before, during, and after the process is complete, and that is the plan you need to develop. Patience. You can't rush perfection or real process. If you need to take the time to create a more desirable product or service, then do so. Patience is a virtue. It is not always an easy thing to do, but if you can remain patient when needed, you may be better off than you thought. Distill. You will and most likely have a number of thoughts and ideas about your business. Just like with the distilling process, take the time to heat up your brain waves and boil the ideas you have to the most basic, easy to understand concepts. Storytelling. Most customers that buy a product or service like the idea or the service behind it. If you ask some people where liquor comes from, they may say the liquor store. However, a much more engaged customer or the clients you want to be part of your future business may answer a portion of the story that you share with them when their products or service originate from. Stories are as old as the people that first communicated, so tell an engaging story about your business. Be original, or at least be authentic. Many distilleries create an original identity or brand based on the location, process, and more. In the age of social media, where we share everything we do and experience, originality is something that is more and more difficult to achieve. Before the age of social media and web searches, you may have experienced more of what seemed like original moments. But today, with all the recordings of people's experiences, that true originality is becoming harder and harder to find. You should strive for originality in your product offerings or services. However, in the absence of the opportunities to be more original, be authentic. Being true to oneself or to the process or belief in business is just as important as being authentic in life. You may be able to keep up an unauthentic approach to business for a little while, but not forever. So there you have it, a few distilled down business lessons you can serve up in your own business, straight from an aged barrel of business basics poured into a 3-minute drill. We'll be right back. Having a good community conscience is an important part of building solid business relationships in the region where your customers, friends, and families live. Making a real difference through giving can be part of making a living in business. Here's how this week's guest gets involved to make our communities and region stronger. Joyce, we meet so many great people that are involved in their community outside of the work that they do every day, and you're no different. You're involved with many different organizations, historically and currently. Can you talk a little bit about your role with the Atlantic City Arts Center?
Yes. In 2000, I was hired as the executive director for the Atlantic City Arts Center, which is located on Garden Pier in Atlantic City. That's when, that was really my first introduction to the city. I hadn't really done much work in the city before that. And through that process of being in that position for 5 years, I came to really learn that the residents of the city didn't even think that facility was for them. So it was great to get them involved in the arts by making them realize that they could come in. It wasn't just a tourist site, that we were really doing programming that was for the city residents as well. And they were so grateful and started bringing in their own artwork and talking to me about how important that was for them. And that's what really kind of got me hooked on trying to provide arts in Atlantic City for the residents.
You know, it's funny, it's a follow-up question to that, but Atlantic City can't be unique in that way. I bet there's places all over the region and all over the nation that some people view it as a place for someone to visit from the outside of the community and not ignite it as a potential art catalyst for their community. So it was great that you were able to take that very simple step, but it turned into a giant leap for local artists.
Yeah, it did.
So did that lead you to some of the work you did with the South Jersey Cultural Alliance?
Yes, it did. That was my next position, and when I was there, I was manager of marketing and tourism. So that really solidified my understanding of how arts marketing really worked throughout the 8 counties of South Jersey, but it also introduced me to the cultural tourism aspect of the arts, which is another thing I'd like to be able to focus on more fully for the city of Atlantic City. Not too long ago, we had a sand sculpture competition on the beach in Atlantic City, and while the Atlantic City Alliance was here, they also produced a 3D chalk event that was in the city. They were originated to be tourism events and really draw people to the city, but also to be of value to our local residents as well. Those have been absent from the arts landscape. Those kind of events have been absent from the arts landscape in the city, and I'm working very hard with local leaders to try to bring some of those back as well. And that the love for those kinds of things and my understanding of that was really developed while I was working in that position with South Jersey Cultural Alliance.
I love that you put those two pieces together, and it was sort of an organic growth. You went back to the basics of creating art for the local population, and now you're focusing on making it a tourist opportunity for the people to come and visit. So it does, one leads directly to the other, and clearly through the 48 blocks and the Chalk About AC and the Arteriors, you're doing that in a very big way. Local artists, local initiatives, but something for everybody to enjoy. That's great. You talked about something, we always talk outside of the work we're doing here on the television. You're now in the Community Fund for AC. Can you talk a little bit about your role there?
Yes, 3 years ago there was a group that came to Atlantic City that hosted an event called Creative AC. And one of the initiatives that was developed during that 1 day or was 2 day event, I'm not sure if it was 1 or 2 days, was that it would be great to start a community fund for Atlantic City. There is a community foundation of Southern New Jersey that's located, I believe, in the Haddonfield area. And so some of their personnel started having conversations with some of us in the city. We all agreed it would be a great thing to start, and we've had our first board meeting, so we're actually there, and I'm very proud to be serving on that board and trying to make that kind of funding source for the whole city of Atlantic City become a reality.
Clearly, your experience and your willingness to participate, they chose the right person to be on that fund position. I want to thank you personally for all the work you do within the arts and the connections to the nonprofit community. Keep up the good work, because it's really making a difference.
Thanks so much. I hope so.
That was Joyce Hagan, Executive Director of the Atlantic City Arts Foundation. We'll be right back with more South Jersey Business. As a proud graduate of Stockton, it is wonderful to meet and speak with so many business people in our region who have a past or a current link to the university as well. Let's plug into a Stockton Community Connection. Susan, so many of the guests that we have on South Jersey Business have a wonderful Stockton community connection, and your story really is no different. You have a very nice Stockton community connection that goes back to a big part of your life. So can you talk a little bit about the Stockton community connection?
Of course. So my connection with Stockton started when I finished my MBA here back in 2005. And after that, I always had, a very high regard for Stockton, and became involved on the continuing education side of things, and did some teaching outside of Stockton, but on the behalf of Stockton, and then was asked to come in and be an adjunct professor. And I've been doing that since 2012 was my first class. I just wrapped up one of my classes for the semester, and I just love it. I so enjoy teaching and mentoring the students and sharing, what I do every single day in my business. I also have Stockton interns at Suasian, and we hire Stockton graduates. So
great.
pretty much from every direction, involved with Stockton. I love this university, and I just, I'll definitely see myself being connected to it for a long time to come.
Well, I want to go back to the teaching for a second, because the work you do, it's so important to understand the different mindsets of different generations. And there you are, you have the opportunity to teach in an environment where you're getting some of the freshest, brightest individuals, and you're creating dialogue with them. How helpful is that when you take what you've learned in the classroom back into the community?
Well, it's incredible to go from my business and then go and teach at night, and I do. I'm practicing all day. I'm teaching, sometimes 2 or 3 nights a week. And it really does keep you on your A game when you're doing it that much, and certainly when you're trying to teach new folks that are trying to learn the business, and hearing their perspectives, and their kind of whole mindset is different because it's a different generation. So yeah, it's really, really exciting and really fascinating at the same time. But yeah, you're kind of living and breathing marketing, 24/7. So that definitely does keep you on your A game.
How important has the Stockton Community Connection been to your life and career?
Oh, it's just an unending connection in so many different ways, from my own education to to teaching here, and certainly employing Stockton students, and having the interns come in. I think my daughter is actually going to attend here as well. So just a lot of a variety of connections, and all great ones.
That's great news. Good to hear. And I want to thank you for sharing your Stockton Community Connection.
Thanks, Joe.
That was Susan Adelizy Schmidt, president of Suasian Communication Group. We'll be right back with more South Jersey Business. The more people that watch South Jersey Business, the more questions we continue to receive. And of course, we do our best to respond to your questions. So it's time for Q&A. Here's this week's question. Dear South Jersey Business, I have the perfect location, a perfect price, and it seems absolutely perfect. I am nervous that if I don't get this location, my business will not be as successful as I know it can be. Am I wrong to feel this way? The short answer is yes. While you are not completely wrong to feel extremely positive about a potential location, you seem to be putting an emphasis on the perfection of this location. I am sure that's as perfect as the location is. There may be other locations that are just as perfect. My concern is that your business plan should be built around the product or service you offer. In all my years of consulting, I don't remember too many businesses that failed because a location that seemed perfect didn't materialize. But I have seen people force a good idea into a bad location. As long as your business looks good on paper and is not solely dependent on a perfect location, you can still consider alternatives. Also remember the long-term thinking. What seems perfect today may not have the same appeal as the communities, the planning, and even the traffic patterns and the economic cycles shift. You can like a location a lot, but do yourself a favor and don't fall in love with it. I hope that helps answer your question. We'll be right back. Well, that's the show. We had an informative discussion with Mark Ganter, co-owner and operator of Little Water Distillery in Atlantic City, New Jersey. We answered a question and even uncorked some distilled business basic lessons during our 3-minute drill. Once again, thank you to Stockton University and everyone that makes this program possible. Let's do it again next week. Until then, let's get growing, South Jersey. Thanks for watching.